Today's lesson is going to be about properties of logarithms, even more than what we talked about last class. So there's going to be 7 properties that we're going to talk about. A couple of them we've already talked about, a couple of them we've discussed. And if you remember what a logarithm is just a way of writing an exponent. So if you look at this first property, log base b of 1 is equal to 0. What this is saying is b, which is a number, raised to what power is going to give me 0. If you think about it in exponential form, it looks like this. b raised to the 0 power is equal to 1, which is true. Any number raised to the 0 power is 1. So what we're looking for is we're going to evaluate, and that would just be 0. The second one says log base b of b is equal to 1. Well, that would say b to the first power is equal to b if you look at it in exponential form. b raised to what power is going to get me the same number of b? 1. This one here, log base b of b raised to the x. What happens here is you have b log base b of b, which is 1. And then this log is really an exponent. So what do we do with an exponent raised to an exponent? We multiply them, so it'd be 1 times x, which is just x. And then 4, you look at the bases. Bases are the same. Then it's just going to be that number right there. So those are the 4 properties we're going to use right off the bat. So what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate. So if we look at this, notice we have log base 4 of 4. That's really going to be a 1, which is an exponent, and 1 times 5 is really just going to be 5. That's also property number 3 from over here. If the bases are the exact same with the number, then it's just the 5. Notice the 6 and the 6 are the exact same, then the number is just x. Notice the base here and the base here are the same, then we're just the number z, and that's all you're going to do with those evaluations, just using those different properties. Okay, this is where it gets a little trickier. Product rule, quotient rule. If you remember back to our exponent rules earlier in the year, whenever you have an exponent to an exponent, you multiply. When you have multiplication, you add exponents. When you divide, you subtract exponents. So if I look at this, what we have here is we have multiplication. Well, multiplication of x, when we multiply, we add the exponents. So now what we can do is we can switch this apart and make it addition of 2 exponents. Division, what we can do is we can make that subtraction of exponents, because when we divide, we subtract exponents. And then this one here, number 3, is what we do is we take this exponent right here and we move it in front right here, like what we have is y times this. Well, we have this right here. So if you think about what a logarithm is, this log base x right here is an exponent raised to another exponent. Well, when we have an exponent raised to an exponent, you multiply those, and that's where we're getting those. So we're going to talk about how to use those to expand and condense and evaluate and do all those things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to expand. Basically, we're going to use all these properties to rewrite logarithms. So the only way that we can rewrite this one is to take this 4 and move it out front, and this would become 4 log base 5 of 7, and that's all we're doing, is we're just rewriting using those previous properties. This one's not as obvious. Log square root of x. One thing you have to remember, and we've talked about this, and we're not going to do a whole lot of these, is that a square root can be written as exponents. A square root is the same thing as raising something to the 1/2 power. Then I can take that 1/2 power and move it out front, and this becomes log base 10 of x. Remember that there is really a base there of 10. I don't need it there, but it's good to have and remember that that's the case. If I look at this one, take this 9, move it out front, and this would be log base 6 of 3. And that's expanding. All we're doing is we're using those properties just to rewrite things and learn the properties so that we can use them later on to solve some equations and things. Okay? Next slide, expand. Notice here we have multiplication. Multiplication can change to addition. So what this does is this becomes log base 4 of x squared plus log base 4 of y. Notice we took this x squared y that's being multiplied together, we split it apart as 2 logarithms. Expanding means to make bigger. We're making more logarithms, and we have addition. The last thing we can do is take this 2 that's an exponent and move it out front. 2 log base 4 of x plus log base 4 of y. And that is the final answer. That's all you can do. So the next one we have division. Division can change to subtraction. So this becomes log base 7 of x to the 4th minus log base 7 of y to the 5th. The only thing left to do here is take these exponents and move them out front. This will become 4 log base 7 of x minus 5 log base 7 of y. And that right there is your final answer. If you look at the last one, notice we have division, but we also have multiplication in the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this in separate pieces. We're going to do the division first. This becomes log base 7 of x cubed minus log base 7 of 4y to the 7th. Okay? Now we have multiplication here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break that apart. So this first part, log base 7, I'm going to move that 3 out front because I can do that, of x minus, now we're splitting this apart. So this minus sign has to affect everything that's being broke apart. So what I do is I use parentheses. This becomes log base 7 of 4 plus log base 7 of y to the 7th. And then the last thing would be to take this exponent and move it out front. So it'd be 3 log base 7 of x minus parentheses log base 7 of 4 plus 7 log base 7 of y. And that's expanding. It's using those properties of exponent or logarithms to expand, to basically rewrite things. All right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to condense. Condense means make things smaller. So the previous slide, we took things that were one logarithm and made them multiple. Today, on this one, we're going to make multiple logarithms become one. And what we do is we look. Addition can change to multiplication. So this becomes log base 4 of 2 times 32. And notice we went from 2 logarithms to a single logarithm. And then you can simplify that a little bit more. 2 times 32 is 64. That's your final answer. Here, we have subtraction. Subtraction changes to division, so this becomes log base 10 of 4x minus 3 over x, and I always put parentheses around this just to clean it up a little bit, to really show that that's one logarithm. And remember, if you want, you can put that 10 there, but it's not really necessary. Okay, here I have addition and I have subtraction, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this piece first. I'm going to work left to right, so I'm going to make this log base 2 of 5x, and then minus log base 2 of y. I haven't done anything with that second part. Now I'm going to do the subtraction. This becomes log base 2 of 5x divided by y, and the reason why is because that subtraction turns into division. I'm now down to a single logarithm. When you're condensing, you want to get down to a single logarithm, which we did in all 3 of these cases, and that's condensing. Last slide, and then we're done. So what we have here is, notice we have a number in front of the log. We can't condense if there's a number in front of the log. So this 4 can get moved up here because we have that property that says I can move that number out front. We can also move it back. So this becomes log base 5 of x to the 4th minus log base 5 of y to the 5th. Then I can change this to division and do this log base 5 of x to the 4th over y to the 5th. And again, I put parentheses there, but it's not necessary that you do that, but I just like to do it. Okay? Same thing, I'm going to move this 3 up. I'm going to move this 2 up. This becomes log base y of x minus 5 to the 3rd minus log base y of x minus 1 squared. Now I can do the division, log base y of x minus 5 cubed over x minus 1 squared. And that is condensing. That's the properties of logarithms that we're going to talk about today. And that's it for today.